So, bienvenue à tous à cette...
Good afternoon. This is meeting number 58. We'll be continuing our study of privacy and social media this afternoon. Today we'll be hearing from Twitter, Laura Peary, who is legal counsel. And then, by video conference, we will have Axiom. I think I'll just quickly go through the procedures. You have 10 minutes for your opening remarks. And then we'll move on to questions and answers for about 1 hour for Twitter. So I'll give Ms. Peary the floor without any further delay for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, other distinguished members of the committee. It is a great pleasure to be here with you in Ottawa today to discuss the important subject of social media and protection of our users' personal information. As some of you know, Twitter is a global communications service that was created in 2006. And since its inception, Twitter has been designed primarily to enable users to share information publicly with the world. In the short span of our company's history, we've seen how Twitter can bring people closer and help them feel more connected to what's going on in the world. Twitter can be a very empowering tool for users to be global publishers and to be information consumers. We've been privileged to be a platform for famous artists like Ai Weiwei, who, although he cannot leave China, he can communicate with the world via Twitter. Twitter has also been used as a platform for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They've used it effectively for community outreach, for recruitment, and for offering support for gays and lesbians who were victims of abuse and bullying. We are very proud of the role that Twitter plays in giving voice to the stories of millions of people every day. So let me give a little context about how Twitter works. So as some of you know, Twitter is a free service that allows people to publish and receive short messages, short 140-character messages called tweets. Most people using Twitter have accounts. So you sign up for an account and you're able to follow other users, which means that you can automatically see their tweets in your timeline, which is the stream of tweets that you see when you log into the service. Although you do not need to have an account to use Twitter to see publicly visible tweets. Because of the ease of following on Twitter, the ease of using the service as a publishing platform, we now have 140 or more than 140 million users around the world, and they publish more than 400 million tweets per day in many different languages. So there's a real diversity of users and interests represented on Twitter. And in the short span of the company's history, we've seen it used for politics and news, for art, for music, for entertainment, for sports, for fashion, for food, culture, you name it. We've seen politicians engaging with citizens. We've seen celebrities responding to fans. We've seen individuals seeking and obtaining redress from global companies. We've seen online literature, charitable campaigns. We've even seen calamity and natural disaster. It's been an opportunity to a way that we could witness and see what's going on in other parts of the world. Our goal is to be the platform for the global public conversation, for the global town square that Twitter's become. So let me talk a little bit about our approach and commitment to privacy. And let me tell you first a little bit about who I am. So, as you know, I'm Laura Peary. I am one of the legal counsel at Twitter, and my primary responsibility is to advise the company on some of its product initiatives, and that includes data protection issues, and it includes compliance with our privacy policy. So privacy, though, is something that the lawyers in the company, so me, we aren't the only ones who think about it. We have a set of company values, and one of our company values is to defend and respect the user's voice. And that includes respect for users' personal information. So our service doesn't require a whole lot of personal information in order to use it. As I mentioned, you can use the service without actually having an account. If you have an account, you don't need to provide a real name, a street address. You don't need to provide age. You don't need to provide gender. And you can protect your tweets if you wish, if you don't want your tweets to be publicly visible, although it's worth noting that most people come to Twitter in order to share information publicly, so they want their tweets to be public. So drawing on our company values, when we're launching product features, when we're designing our product features, we do so with privacy in mind. So, for example, one of our privacy philosophies is to provide contextual notices or disclosures to users in the product at the time that they provide us with information in order to supplement our privacy policies. So I did actually listen to some of the questions that you asked previously, and one of the questions that you asked about was about privacy policies and, do users read them, and, how do we know that users are aware of what your privacy practices are? And so one thing to help ensure that users are aware is to provide additional disclosures, provide these kinds of contextual notices. So let me give you an example of how we do that, and it's with our location, our tweet with location feature, which since I know some of you are active users, you may know how this works, but we have a number of different notices and controls around tweeting with location. So first, in order to tweet with location, you have to actually turn it on in settings. So you go to the account settings, you turn on the ability to share location with Twitter. Once you've turned it on, when you go to the tweet box, you'll see a location icon that's in the area where you compose your tweet, and you have the option to turn location on or off on a per tweet basis. So you can decide with each tweet whether you want to include your location in the tweet. There's also information there about tweeting with location and how it works and what it means. In addition, if you've tweeted with your location, you can also change your mind later and decide, actually I don't want my location in those tweets. So you can go to your account settings and you can remove location from your tweets without actually deleting the tweet itself. So Twitter is still a young company, certainly younger than the other companies that you've had here. And we're keenly aware that our service our platform must serve our users well, and that we must earn their trust by providing a robust service that is engaging and also safe and secure. So let me close with an example of how we work hard at achieving that balance. And I want to talk about a product launch that we had earlier this year that I was involved in. Earlier this year, we launched a product feature to tailor suggestions for users, suggestions for them for accounts to follow in the service. So we wanted to help them find more accounts that they may be interested in the service. So for those of you who use the service, I'm sure you know that Twitter is better when you're following people that are talking about things that you're interested in the moment. So what we found was that we could make much better suggestions for users to help them follow accounts that they're interested in based on the accounts that are frequently followed by other users who visit the same websites in the Twitter ecosystem. So the Twitter ecosystem is all the other websites that have integrated Twitter's buttons and widgets, so like our tweet buttons and our follow buttons that allow you to tweet from other websites or to follow users from other websites. We found that this was a really great way to present users with current and interesting suggestions for who to follow on Twitter. And I'm sure, as many of you know, this is not unique to Twitter. Other websites that are integrated, or other services that are integrated into websites, so like LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, they also receive this kind of web visit information when users visit pages in which their services have been integrated. So we're very excited that we could make much better suggestions for users to more quickly and easily find what they're looking for following on Twitter. At the same time, we really wanted to give users simple and meaningful choices around the collection of this information and whether it's collected and used for improving their service experience. So we are very proud to be one of the first major Internet services to have implemented Do Not Track. So we implemented it as a way for users to let us know if users have Do Not Track set in their browser. They've let us know that they do not want this information collected for us to improve their service experience in this way by making better recommendations. So I think it's important to stress that this is a do not collect implementation that we made, where we actually don't collect the information, because there's been a lot of discussion around Do Not Track and exactly how it should be implemented. We worked collaboratively with the United States Federal Trade Commission in our Do Not Track implementation. We also worked with a lot of lawmakers and advocates in the privacy community in the United States, and we were really thrilled that with the praise that they gave us for our implementation. It was really an honor, and we were very appreciative of the kind words that they had. We also, although we do not have an office here in Canada, we don't have employees here. In fact, today is our first visit as Twitter employees to Canada. Thank you. We did reach out to the commissioner at the Office of the Privacy Commissioner here in Canada at the time that we did this product launch, just to let her know about our plans and that we plan to implement this product feature and support Do Not Track. So we do hope that our support of Do Not Track shows its value as a consumer tool for privacy, and we hope that it encourages wider adoption of it as a privacy preference for users. So thank you very much.
Je vais devoir vous arrêter, malheureusement. Ça fait déjà...
I'm afraid I'll have to cut you off at this point. And I forgot to thank you at the beginning, but I would like to thank you for coming. I hope you're not finding that the weather's too cold here. And I'll now give the floor to Mr. Angus for 7 minutes. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We're very pleased that you're here, because we're in the final stages in this study. And for us as legislators, we're looking, I think, across party lines, but I can't speak for my colleagues over there, and I never would try. We don't want reactive legislation. We want legislation that works so that we can allow the platforms to develop. The enormous possibility for democratic engagement to us is, at least in the New Democratic Party, is an essential element. We think we have a strong privacy regime in Canada. We believe Canadians really value their privacy, and they are crazy users of social media. They're all over it, but they still want that balance. And so the question is, how do we strike that balance? And I'd like to ask you about some of the experience with Twitter, because it's a different setup than, say, Facebook, so it has different strengths and weaknesses. Because of the anonymous features, we've seen a number of cases recently with threatened lawsuits and that, like Lord McAlpine threatening 10,000 Twitter users with lawsuits over retweeting allegations about him. This is certainly putting us into new territory in terms of what is libel and where does libel apply. So when someone says they're going to sue 10,000 people, 9,000 of them for retweeting something that damaged someone's reputation, how does Twitter work with that? Do you say you have to bring a production order to get the data on these anonymous names? Some of them might be obvious, but the vast majority of them will have anonymous handles. So how does Twitter deal with those kind of situations?
We do have posted law enforcement guidelines, and we do require that if you're seeking non-public, so private personal information about our Twitter users, that you provide us with appropriate legal process, so subpoena or court order. And I mean, this is, in our interest of protecting our users' privacy. We also are committed to transparency around law enforcement requests. So we do always notify users when someone has requested their information in this way. So this would be the process that we would ask parties to pursue if they're looking to receive.
It would seem to me somewhat difficult to launch 10,000 lawsuits unless you had endless amounts of money. Or, I mean, in Lord McAlpine's case, I think he was asking for apologies from the tweeters. But in that case, would you insist on production orders for each of the 10,000 who are being brought against? Do you deal with his legal team? It will be somewhat of a precedent setter if this kind of case goes forward.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not familiar with the specifics of his case. So, I mean, I think that Twitter as a platform for speaking, and I mean, it's similar to how the internet is a platform for speaking. If you don't, this is the dispute resolution aspects of identifying the speaker that you're talking to certainly has these challenges. I mean, I'm not sure that Twitter has a role. We have rules that govern use of our platform, and so of course we don't. We expect that the accounts that are, the people that are using our service are in compliance with our rules. But if it's speech that's otherwise in compliance and not unlawful, then these users are going to have to, find ways to resolve their disputes, and unfortunately, if it goes into the court systems, that this is a challenge in bringing litigation.
I'll give you a different example. It came to our committee. A staffer in one of the Liberal Party set up an anonymous Twitter account,
right,
and released the court affidavits of one cabinet minister's very messy divorce. I don't think anything in it was inaccurate, but it certainly caused a brouhaha, and the staffer killed that account. Now, what happens to that information? Is it still part of the Twitter database? So, and you're saying that someone has deleted their account? Someone set up an account, released all kinds of gory details about a very messy public divorce into the Twitter sphere, then got political heat, and then shut down the account. Okay. There's nothing actionable as far as we can see in it. So that data, where is it? Does it disappear when he shuts down the account, or is that part of the Twitter database? Yeah, so, I mean, again, I'm not familiar with the specific situation, but a user can deactivate their account. It's in your account settings, and we have a process for account deletion to happen soon after. So there's a 30-day grace period during which your account is deactivated, so it's removed from the service as of the time that you deactivate it. Then it's deleted. The process for deleting it starts happening 30 days later. Because you're dealing with a reseller GNIP to launch the historical power tracker for Twitter, which provides access to the complete data archives. It says there's 30 billion social data activities a month that's being delivered. So I guess that would be the history of people's tweets. Does that include deleted accounts, or do deleted accounts become deleted information? So parties that are accessing public information through our public APIs, when tweets are deleted, they are deleted from the public API stream as well. I noticed there's polywhoops, where politicians who delete their tweets, and I have to say, having followed some of my colleagues, some of when they really mean to say things are pretty inane. So when they have to delete something, it's usually really idiotic. It's usually after 9 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and they panic and realize, oh my God, did I just do that? And then they press the delete button, which seems to kick off an algorithm with polywhoops, and they grab that and they put it on the site so you can check infamous political tweets that were deleted. Does that happen with Twitter? Does the embarrassing tweet get deleted from Twitter when it happens, and does polywhoops pick it up from the ether? How does that work?
I'm not familiar with polywhoops.
It's fascinating. It's actually the best Twitter feed I've actually been reading recently, and I don't even read Twitter anymore. So, but so
funny.
the politician deletes something that they say is absolutely inane because they drank 2 bottles of wine,
right.
and they want to pick a fight with another politician, and they delete it. So does it disappear, or does it become? It would never happen on our side, but I'm looking at at some of my colleagues. So what happens to those? Not in this room, of course, but what would happen to the tweet? Does it disappear into the never world, or is it there as a permanent record?
Well, so I mean, in our APIs, we wouldn't be providing it through our API. Now, if someone already has it in their possession prior to deletion, it's as though you copied it and. I mean, like we can indicate that there's a deletion notice, but whether they, and our, people who are using our APIs under our developer terms are required to honor those deletion notices. Now, it sounds like
I just want to be on the record. I'm not saying we need digital mittens to protect politicians from being stupid. I was just actually wondering what happens if they delete the tweet, if it disappears.
Merci, M. Angus.
Merci, monsieur.
Le temps est écoulé, malheureusement, donc je cède la parole à M. Butt.
Time is up. Mr. Butt, you now have the floor for 7 minutes.
Chair, thank you, Ms. Peary, for being here. Welcome to Canada. We're glad to have you here. For those of us that are rabid tweeters, not as rabid as Katie O'Malley is in the back there, but some of us like to send lots of tweets out. And we even have our friends like Mr. Angus that used to do it and then decided to quit. So I didn't know about this polywhoops thing, so I think that's kind of interesting. That might give me something to do on the plane on the way home tonight back to Mississauga. But no, thank you for being here. And this has been a fascinating study, and I think all members of the committee, regardless of whether they're government members or opposition members, have really got a lot out of this. And I think our goal of this whole thing is to make sure we don't stifle the creativity and the innovation and what Canadians want out of social media, because they clearly want it. They're using it. They believe in it. It's an important communication vehicle for them through their friends, through their colleagues, and so on. But I think we want to make sure that we're also having a strong balance to make sure people's privacy is protected. My oldest daughter is 13. She tweets. And I'm always worried, concerned, right, as a father, to make sure that her personal private information is not part of it. Now, most of her tweets are fun little things, and I think it's innocent and it's all good. But, as a father, I worry. So have you been able to come up with policies within the organization to make sure that younger users of the service it's great for adults to send something out or violate their own privacy. We're adults. We should take some responsibility. But, when you have a 13-year-old daughter, you are concerned. You want to make sure she has some latitude to, and freedom to enjoy communicating with her friends through an excellent social medium. But you also want to make sure that their privacy is being protected. Do you differentiate in users around younger users of the system and people my age and others that really should know better in what they're sending and how their privacy is being protected?
Yeah. So our service is not intended for users under 13, and we specify this in our privacy policy. And if we do become aware that people under 13 are using our service, if that's brought to our attention, we will delete their accounts. We also do provide resources for parents and teens, and those are linked to as well from our privacy policy. And it's important for us to empower people to protect themselves on the service, and it's important for us to provide tools and features in Twitter itself that actually do that. And our resources talk a little bit about this. Some of those features are, as I mentioned, you can protect your Twitter account such that your tweets are not publicly visible. So if you're concerned about who might view them, you protect your account and approve who gets to see them. You can also block other users of the service if you don't like what they say. I also just think that the nature of following other users, because it's unlike other services, you don't have to follow me just because I follow you. So people can follow and unfollow at will. So if you don't like what someone's saying, it's very
so just on that, if someone decides to follow me, and I know you get the prompt, right? So-and-so is now following you, and it comes through. I don't have the right to say to them they cannot follow me. Is that correct? Like with Facebook, I can decide to make someone my friend or not. But if someone wants to follow me on Twitter, I can't block them from following me. Is that not correct?
You can block users.
You can block someone from following you?
Yeah, you can block users.
Oh, okay. I didn't think you could do that. Well, I got some work to do when I get out of here. Anyway, I'm kidding. My last question is...
Sorry, you're saying if your account is protected, or are you talking about public?
Well, just a regular public account.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then
right?
if you should protect your account if you don't want... Otherwise, it's public. Your tweets are public.
Okay. So if you reset your system to be a private account, you can block out anyone that decides to follow to follow you. You actually have the ability to say, no, I don't want this person following me.
You have to approve them.
Okay. All right. When I get prompted, when I get sent an email through my system, it's prompting me and it's saying, it's suggested that you follow so and so and so. How is that match being done? Because I assume that Twitter is looking at my profile as an individual, which some people could argue is private. I mean, what I happen to be an MP and I'm married and I've got kids and blah, 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 and that's things I've done. But when I'm getting prompted that I should be following certain people because that fits a profile, is there a way that's looked at as whether or not that actually violates any privacy rules? Because obviously someone's made that determination in the back office that I should be following so-and-so because I happen to be a member of Parliament, or I happen to be a father, or I happen to be a hockey player, or whatever I am. So where do you draw the line as an organization around those kinds of things to make sure you're not stepping over using private information about me and who I am to basically encourage me to be a more active user of the system? Because that's the whole idea, right, of Twitter, is more and more people communicating with more and more people. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? So is there a way you strike that balance?
So as I mentioned earlier, we don't require a lot of private personal information in order to use the service. So a lot of our recommendations are based on, for example, who you're publicly already following, and perhaps who the people that you're already publicly following are also publicly following. So, for example, if you happen to follow a lot of the same people that someone else follows, we may suggest that you follow some of the people that they're following, but that you aren't already following. So, because we assume that you are interested.
So it's
in
based on
the
the public information that I'm actually tweeting out or things I'm following or receiving. It's not based on my private CV is the wrong word, but my profile as an individual and what my private information is. It's based on what I'm actually doing on your service.
Yeah, I mean, so you are not required to provide much private information. So we can make suggestions for you without having that. Having any kind of information about who you actually are. I mean, that's how we're able to have anonymous users on our service. So, and you can see actually in the suggestions, often they'll say, we suggest that you follow this person, and then we'll say it's already followed by, other accounts. We'll show the photos of who the people are that are already following them.
Merci. Malheureusement, le temps est écoulé.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Mr. Andrews now has the floor for 7 minutes.
To be here today. Just a question about this anonymous part of Twitter. Have you reviewed the business model of how anonymous Twitter can be? And would it be something that you would consider changing the business model of Twitter to be not so anonymous, so that people who are posting on Twitter, that are commenting on Twitter, people can really know their true identity? And having said that, I also know that in Twitter you have verified accounts, and certain accounts that I would assume that are verified, that these are the people or official accounts. So how do you balance the two of those?
Yeah, I mean, so clearly the verified accounts are non-anonymous accounts, and for those accounts, we think that it's useful for other users of the service to know that this is, in fact, that user. So having identity information for for them sort of helps provide users with a an engaging service because they can find the sort of celebrity or the politician that they're looking for. With respect to anonymous accounts, we believe that there's a real value to allowing users to speak anonymously on our platform. We've seen it's something that we're actually quite proud of as a company. We've seen, for example, human rights activists or journalists in repressive regimes that are expressing unpopular viewpoints. And as part of our goal to be the platform to represent the stories and the voices of so many different users, we think that it's important to be able to allow those voices to be heard and for them to speak without providing identifying information that may have consequences in the country or where they may live. So we've seen this in many cases over the course of our company's history, and it's something we're proud to provide.
Who decides on a verified service or not?
Who decides?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
can a user themselves decide I want my page to be verified that it is me, or is that something that Twitter does if you get to a certain level of followers?
Yeah, we have a help page that has information about it, and usually you do it at a point when you have a certain number of followers.
But is that based by the user can initiate that verified?
The user can initiate it. Exactly.
With regards to the direct message features of Twitter, one would assume that that's a private between two individuals, but there has been a number of breaches of the direct message services that I've gotten the same message as like someone's been hacked and blah blah blah. How often does this happen, and is this a major security concern of Twitter of how often these direct messages get hacked?
I'm sorry, what is the circumstance in which the messages are
direct messages between two users on Twitter, and I know in the last month or so I've gotten several messages
from people that you're following?
Yeah, from people that I'm following that I did not send you that direct message. How often does that service get breached?
I see. So it's a situation where the other person that you were following, they believe they had their account compromised, and someone else sent the message. I mean, certainly security is extremely important to the company, and we encourage our users to keep their own passwords secure and to enter in, very secure passwords. So we are ourselves, constantly providing additional security features for users. Unfortunately, it does happen that sometimes people don't choose this.
How often does it happen?
I don't know. I don't have statistics offhand. But yeah, I mean, if people don't choose secure passwords, whenever someone resets a password, it goes through the process for if they believe their account's been compromised. We do advise them on all of the best security practices to make sure that doesn't happen.
It just seems like it happens more often. It's quite frequent that you get these type of direct messages that were compromised. Yeah,
I mean, and Twitter is always sort of working to try to protect against any kind of spam attacks as well, and try to make sure that user accounts aren't phished. So this is something that we constantly work on. We've got a whole team in San Francisco that's dedicated to protecting security. So we do try to make sure that incidents like that don't happen. But,
You mentioned that you've spoke with our privacy commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Is the FTC your primary regulator for where you set the bar on privacy issues within the Twitter organization? Have you been dealing with any other privacy commissioners? Has Twitter been directed to do anything by any other governments in the privacy department?
So we are a United States-based company. So the FTC is our privacy regulator. That said, we are aware that we have users outside of the United States, even though our operations are in the United States, and our headquarters are there. So we are always open to being collaborative with other commissioners and interested in privacy standards that are outside the United States. And as I said, trust is extremely important to us, so we are looking to do things like, for example, implement Do Not Track, just because we think that will build trust with our users. So we are open to being collaborative. We have not had any, I think you asked, any dealings with other enforcement
other
actions.
privacy commissioners or other FTCs?
Yeah, no, we have. I mean, we've had communications where we've reached out to people in the same way that we gave the privacy commissioner here a call, just to let them know that we were launching this feature and supporting Do Not Track. But we've worked very collaboratively.
Okay. Thank you.
Donc, je cède la parole à M. Dreschen pour cette...
Mr. Dreschen, you have the floor for 7 minutes.
Here today, when we were in Washington, we had an opportunity to speak with the FTC, as Scott had just mentioned, but also with some people that were talking about the concept of privacy and perhaps looking at it in ways that not everyone has in the uppermost in their minds, and they were talking about privacy versus fairness, so that inaccurate information being presented about oneself, that about seclusion, so the right to be able to be left alone, and one of the other aspects was security, and you want to make sure that private information about your home and your family and so on is kept out of the media, and liberty as well, so the chance, the opportunity to be able to decide for yourself what you are going to be doing, and I think with and basic dignity as well. So I mean, these are the kinds of lenses that some of the people that we were talking to were asking us to consider, or at least making it something that we would have in our minds as we go through this particular study, because it is not one that is going on in different parts of the world. So I'm just wondering how you reconcile the use of your platform with some of the abuses of privacy for some of those things that I've just outlined, and do you look at it a little bit differently for each of those aspects of privacy? And if you could comment on that, please.
So the abuses that you were mentioning are
There are the different aspects of it, different ways of looking at privacy, but we just use the one word to describe it. But there's so many different levels. And I'm just wondering if there's an awareness of that, or if you ever take a look at it through that lens when you are trying to think about your privacy policies. Because, of course, that's why we are here, is to take a look at the privacy policies and to see whether or not companies are flexible and are capable of reacting to new issues that might come up because they hadn't thought about it.
Right,
so that's really where I'm going with my question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say that certainly a lot of the privacy principles too that are also being advocated in the United States as well are also around not just notice, disclosure, security, information access, the right to delete information, modify information. So we certainly think about those things as well, and our privacy policy attempts to disclose to users all of the different controls and tools that we give to them around here's the information that we collect, here's how you can modify it, here's how you can delete it, and give users those kinds of controls and that kind of access to the information that they're providing on our service.
Great, well, thank you. The other aspect of it as well is that, because people feel that it is free, they're not paying every time they're, it's not like putting coins into a telephone. They have this concept that it is free, but of course you have to make money in order to function and to do as well as you do. And I'm just wondering if, and I noticed this in some of the descriptions we have about the company, it says Twitter does use cookie technology to collect additional website usage data and to improve its services. So I wonder if you could outline for people so that they really do understand what your business model is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and if it wasn't for the fact that you could make money, it wouldn't happen. So I wonder if you could give me a bit of a background as to why, what you use, why you use it, and then perhaps people can get a little better idea of what this free function is all about.
Sure. So unlike other services, we don't have display advertising. What we have is we have what we call our own promoted products, which are sort of organic and integrated into the Twitter service. So the different promoted products we have are promoted accounts, promoted tweets, and promoted trends. So we have those are all sort of parts of the Twitter service that we have, and we just have a component of them that's promoted, and we show people our promoted products in the same way that we try to show them other content that we may think that they may be interested in. So, for example, when you see suggestions for accounts that we suggest that you follow, we may show you a promoted account in connection with other accounts that are not promoted. And in the same way that we were talking about earlier, where we may suggest that you follow particular accounts because people that you are already following have already followed that account, we might do the same thing with a promoted account. So, for example, people that I'm following, I follow, for example, a bunch of lawyers, a bunch of technology journalists, and some privacy researchers. So they may be these people may be following an account that maybe is an upcoming privacy conference. So perhaps the privacy conference has decided to promote their account, given that the conference is coming up. They want more people to be following and aware of what's going on. So that might show up as a promoted account.
So then if somebody was retweeting an article that they had read, would you have a way of tracking that? I mean, this is the use through your platform of someone else, and of course there's advertising that is taking place. Perhaps if you are sent to to another media source or whatever, is there a way that would be tracked through your service, or is just a case that you get a chance to use it and that's good enough? Do you have a way of continuing out to see how it is being used in different media?
Even outside of the Twitter service?
Yes. Because you were the one, you had the platform there that allowed it to be directed there. I'm just
to say my privacy conference
That's right.
hypothetical. No. So off of the Twitter service, the example that I gave in my opening comments around when Twitter is integrated into other services, we'll receive web visit information in those kinds of situations, but otherwise we will not know off of Twitter whether...
Merci, Monsieur Drishin. Malheureusement, le temps est écoulé.
Thank you, Mr. Drishin. Your time is up, and Mr. Boulris, you now have the floor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to our witness. Thank you so much for coming today. I am a politician, and therefore I use Twitter quite a bit, as do many of my colleagues. You really did revolutionize communications, especially when you made us do that within 140 tweets. We now all have to be brief and concise. I'd like to follow up on a question that was raised by my colleague. You provide a service for citizens, consumers, that is free. There doesn't seem to be much advertising on Twitter, at least compared to Facebook and other sites. So I'm still having trouble figuring out how you make your money.
Well, we do make our money from our promoted tweets, our promoted trends, and our promoted accounts.
Ma question
But this is the question I'm interested in getting an answer to, because and it fits into our study. Do you collect information on people who have a Twitter account, and do you sell that information to other companies like data brokers?
Faites pas ça.
We didn't.
Do not do that.
J'ai un peu plus tôt aujourd'hui.
Earlier today, I went through a bit of a funny exercise. I used my Twitter account to ask people to suggest questions to ask you. And I got answers. And a reporter from La Presse, Maryse Tessier, asked me to ask you this. What measures do you take to prevent people from taking on another identity? So let's say my account, Alexandre Boulris, is on Twitter. No, not Justin, mine. Okay, so Alexandre Boulris is me. But someone may pretend to be me, and then this could affect my image, etc. What measures do you take?
I mean, that would be in violation of our Twitter rules. We do not allow people to misrepresent the identity of other people in a way that's misleading, like you suggest. And so if that account were reported to us, we would take that account down.
OK, il faudrait que je porte plainte, par exemple.
So then I would have to complain. And then someone in your department would undertake some sort of check, and that would be taken down.
OK, donc un mécanisme qui est...
I see. So there is a mechanism for that. I have another question. This was discussed earlier as well in our meetings. There's this whole bullying issue going on these days amongst teenagers, for example. And it can happen on Facebook and Twitter, and Facebook and Twitter can actually become a tool used by gangs or by bullies in schools against other people. Do you have any mechanisms that you can use to block that kind of behavior?
So our philosophy around that is to empower people to have the tools to do it themselves, to protect themselves. So that's where the protected accounts, the ability to, block particular. We can block. You can be anonymous on the service. You can, not agree to let other people see your tweets if you're a protected account. We have resources for teens. If there is targeted harassment at particular individuals, then that's a violation of our rules, and we don't allow that if that's brought to our attention. So we also provide resources on our service for parents and teens to help them deal with these kinds of situations, and that blocking and ignoring is often what we find to be the most effective way to go, because often if you ask actually for content to be taken down, it just makes the person who's the bully feel as though they were successful in what they're trying to accomplish, and so they may create another account and then try to do it somewhere else. So blocking and ignoring is usually what we recommend people do.
OK. Quelques secondes.
I have a few seconds left. Then I'd just like to make a comment. I've become so impatient now. I'm waiting to see what's written on Twitter so I can find out what's happening. Yes, I do the same thing. Mr. Mays, you have 5 minutes.
And thank you, our witness, being here today. The issue that we have been reviewing is how are we going to monitor privacy violations? And then, of course, with that is the one that's delivering the social media is a simplicity of consent. As far as the collection of data or marketing of data, those type of issues. And I'm just wondering, and listening to what you've explained to the committee here, I almost see there's a responsibility of the user to protect their own information, because they're the ones that are supplying that information to the platform. It'd almost be impossible to monitor 400 million tweets. Is it a day? Yes. Yeah. So I guess that's the issue I have is there as far as any of your customers that would complain about violations of privacy, your natural defense would be it's your responsibility as an individual user to not disclose things that you don't want to be viewed by the general public. Would that be your defense?
I think this gets back to our privacy philosophy, where we think it's really important to be clear with users about why it is that we're collecting the information, how it gets used, give them abilities to delete the information, and to do so in a way that's more granular than, you can just delete your account. So we try to do things that are a little more fine-tuned, like you can delete the location from your tweet without actually deleting the tweet itself. So that's where we think that if you give users options like that, then it helps them make informed decisions, and they're then empowered to protect themselves.
Any problems would be, complaint-based, wouldn't it? Because you couldn't monitor something like Twitter for privacy.
Yeah, so for
It's
example, for
impossible.
violations of our rules, we do have a process for people to submit complaints to us, and that's how we respond to them, given the volume of content that we have on our service.
A previous testimony by a lawyer was that, the disclosure and the customer agreeing to certain conditions of the use was that it can't be concise because there's so many legal things that have to be covered, and so quite often people just go through it and say, I agree, and they don't read. So has your company made any effort to try to be a little bit more simplistic in your consent that you provide to people? And I really think the big issues are the collection of data, the marketing of data, and also the term of retention of data.
Yeah.
Like those are the three big ones, I think, for customers. Have you been able to do anything with regard to that?
I mean, so it actually is, perhaps not surprising since we're a service that's about simplicity in 140 characters. We do favor brevity. And so we've taken great pains to try to actually make our privacy policy shorter than many and very user-friendly in the language that we use. And then we do also think that it's important, though, for users to have access to more information about certain features. And so we'll link from our policy to help pages that have additional specifics. And then, as I mentioned, we also provide additional disclosures in the context in the product so that the user doesn't have to, dive into some long privacy policy and find the exact section where it's mentioned and how the company is treating your information.
Do you have any recommendations for the committee on your thoughts of, and through your experience of ways that we can ensure that privacy, not only in your delivery of your service, but also other services to ensure that customers' privacy is protected?
I would certainly say that our experience, for example, with the product launch that I mentioned, it really was an example of our doing privacy by design, and we did it in a very collaborative way with the U.S. FTC and with others that are involved in the privacy community, and being able to have that kind of back and forth relationship as we went through the product development cycle, I thought was extremely useful. And we felt that we could be really open and candid, and there was a lot of feedback that we got through that product development cycle that we incorporated, and so that the final product that we launched was different than the one that we were thinking about when we went into it at the beginning. So I think that having that kind of input and engagement is really useful in making sure that you don't miss things, and when you're trying to do the right thing, that you're able to execute on that and don't have any surprises down the road.
Merci. Merci. Votre temps est écoulé.
Thank you. Your time is up. And I'll give the last few minutes to Mr. Larose. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. How much time do I have, actually? A couple of minutes.
I appreciate. Moi aussi, je suis un utilisateur de Twitter.
I also use Twitter. And I also believe in international democracy and information flow, freedom of expression. I think all that's very important. And as a planet, I think it helps to improve our lives. But I've been listening to you since earlier on, and I do have a few concerns. I have concerns about Twitter's involvement in its involvement in the flow of information. There have been some, for example, regimes that have been overturned. And I'd like to know if the fact that you're so successful, perhaps you're a victim of your own success because you've expanded quite a bit. And I'd like to know if you have any sort of mechanisms that protect you from regimes or people who are disturbed by your very existence. Let's take 2009 in January and in May. There were individuals. So perhaps I'm talking about people who are heavily funded. I'd like to hear your comments on that.
No, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand. So is your concern about communications, or is your
have you put mechanisms in place to protect yourselves? Because you're
Twitter as a company from
cyber attacks.
Oh, so security related.
Yeah, not individuals, but more bigger actors around the world, because you are becoming global.
I see. Absolutely. So, I mean, as we grow and become bigger, security and having secure systems is an enormous priority for the company. And that has actually been a priority for the company in the last couple of years as we've been scaling just to handle the enormous volume of tweets that we've had. We just have had to scale our infrastructure, and part of scaling the infrastructure is also making sure that it's very secure. And as I mentioned, we have a dedicated team in San Francisco that is constantly looking at these issues and trying to make sure that the service is protected against spam or, against any particular security threats. So certainly that is something for us to be thinking about.
Thank you. Perhaps I could just put one question to you. And also, as chair of this committee and also as a Twitter addict, there are photos that are posted on Twitter, and I'd like to know if they belong to you once they're posted, or do the users still have the rights to those photos?
So you retain the rights to your content that you submit to the service, and this is in our terms of service. You do give us permission, so you give us a license in order to be able to distribute it on the service. And actually, this is an issue that Twitter is actually litigating in a court in New York at the moment, because a court found that a user did not have standing to contest the provision of their personal information because the user didn't have any right or interest in the contents of their Twitter account. And so Twitter said, no, as a matter of fact, under our terms of service, users do retain the right to the content, so their content, including their photos, that they submit to the service.
Je vous remercie beaucoup pour votre témoignage.
Thank you very much for coming today. Our time is up. We'll suspend for a few minutes and come back with our second witness. Thank you very much for coming.
On va commencer
We'll begin the second part of our meeting today. I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Barrett Glasgow from Washington, D.C. So, as earlier, we'll have 10 minutes for opening remarks from the witness, who represents Axiom, and then we'll move on to a round of questions and answers. So, with no further delay, I'd like to welcome Ms. Barrett Glasgow. You have 10 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. Can you hear me good? Chairman Desault, Vice Chairman Andrews, Vice Chairwoman Davidson, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to share Axiom's perspective, and also thank you for the opportunity to do it via video conference. First, let me say that as a global company, protecting privacy has been a priority for Axiom for decades, especially in countries unlike Canada, where the laws do not cover all of the uses of personal data. We, as a company, pride ourselves in following all the legal obligations in each country where we source data. I also want to point out that when consumer data is properly used, it can make significant contributions to the economy and the growth and stability of an economy. For 40 years, Axiom has been a market leader in responsibly providing innovative computerized marketing services and a complementary line of data products to help our clients deliver better products and services smarter, faster, more cost-effectively, and with less risk. Our global revenues are in excess of $1 billion annually. Our computerized marketing services are over 80% of worldwide revenues, and our data products are less than 20%. While in other countries we do provide a wider range of products and services, in Canada we only provide business and consumer telephone directory products amounting to just under $1.5 million in annual revenue. Axiom does not have a physical presence in Canada. Instead, we deliver and support our Canadian business from our headquarters in Little Rock, Arkansas, here in the U.S. Axiom's Canadian business and consumer directories are licensed to companies and nonprofit organizations for their internal use as an automated and inexpensive form of directory assistance or for direct mail and telemarketing purposes. Our directories are also licensed to companies that host directory search engines on the Internet for both consumer and commercial use. In these instances, Axiom's listings may be merged with telephone listings from other sources by our client. Many of the sites who license our directories display on the site the reference Data by Axiom. Our clients receive updated replacement directories on a periodic basis, some monthly, some quarterly, and others less frequently. These directories contain published business and consumer listings from printed telephone directories and additional listings available from directory assistants. They also contain Canadian census data that has been appended to the listings. We also flag all consumer records that have registered with the Canadian Direct Marketing Association through their Do Not Call and Do Not Mail suppression services. All clients who use the directory for telemarketing purposes must also use the Canadian National Do Not Call list to block calls if the company does not have an existing business relationship with the consumer. For our Canadian consumer directory, we offer consumers the ability to have their listing removed, or in other words, opt out at no charge. For our Canadian business directory, we offer the ability to remove or correct an inaccurate listing at no charge. In addition, if the business so requests, for a fee, we will publish a corrected yellow or white page listing to all our clients who get our business directory. Business owners and consumers can contact us by calling our Consumer Care Department at a 1-877 number here in the U.S., which works in Canada. They can also opt out of our directory products by going online to Axiom's corporate website, www.axiom.com, and completing an opt-out request form. We also ask any client who uses our data to refer a consumer to us who asks about the source of the data. Opting out removes the listing from the next monthly maintenance cycle for the directory, and our clients receive the update in their next scheduled update cycle. We also inform consumers who want to have their data removed from the Internet that they should contact the directory search engines directly if they want their data removed more quickly than the site will receive an update from Axiom. This is a wise step to take because there are other providers of such directories, and the search engine may not have gotten the listing exclusively from Axiom. As I hope our comments illustrate, Axiom has a culture of respecting consumer privacy, and where laws exist, honoring the obligations the law places on us and our clients' use of personal data. Informational hearings such as this one are very helpful in informing all parties about how personal information can be appropriately used. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to appear today, and I'm available to provide any additional information the committee may request. Thank you.
Merci à vous.
Thank you very much. And I'll now give the floor to Mr. Angus for 7 minutes for question and answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pleased to have you at our study. As you know, this parliamentary committee is looking at the issue of new media, primarily social media, and the data information that's being put on there, and then the question of how it's being collected and how are we protecting privacy rights without being overly intrusive. But if data is compromised, all manner of criminal acts can happen against individuals. We're very pleased that you're being represented today. Your company's been called Big Brother in Arkansas. You are the biggest data broker in the business. Am I correct?
I don't know that we're the biggest, but we're one of them, certainly in the U.S.
So 500 million people, 1,500 data points of information per person, that's what we're being told. Sales of $1.13 billion. In Canada, I just wanted to clarify, are you gathering that kind of general information on Canadian citizens that you would gather on American citizens, or is this is this running across the board? When I look at 500 million people, that's the size of the continental North America. Is that how much Canadian data is in there?
We only have Canadian data from the telephone directories that I described in my opening remarks. The 500 million names represent our worldwide consumption, and Axiom has offices in Europe, in the U.S., in Latin America, and in Asia.
Okay. So telephone data. Okay, thank you. I'm looking at some of the briefs that I've read on various big data companies, and I'm certainly not saying that Axiom is a bad player, there's been some examples of problems, but we're trying to get our head around what big data does. So I'm seeing that if we have 15 points of data on individuals, that would seem to be a lot of information. The data brokers collect general land titles information, birth records, licenses, court records, telephone directories, non-public information that can come from loyalty card purchasing histories, consumer surveys, warranty restrictions, information from magazine subscriptions. And then the question is also that through cookies being able to track browser use on the Internet. So would Axiom be doing that with its U.S. clients or U.S. consumers?
In the U.S., not in Canada, but in the U.S., we do collect data from all of those sources except for the browsing data. We do not collect cookie data that tracks the browser history of individuals.
Right. Are you? I'm pleased to hear that, because I find it personally to be very disturbing that I sometimes try and go on a website. I like to have my cookies turned off, and I'm told I can't access it unless the cookies are on. That somebody be gathering information on my browsing data I would find very disturbing. So I'm pleased to see that Axiom doesn't do that. So are you looking to expand the data sets that you have on Canadians, or are you going to stick with the telephone directory?
The telephone directories have been our offering in Canada for over a decade now, and currently we don't have any plans to expand that. The market is not a large market for us, and so our focus has been elsewhere.
Right, okay. Thank you for that. So within our privacy regime, and we're looking at possible changes to our privacy regime to protect data, the question of breaches are enormous. And there's been some pretty dramatic examples. ChoicePoint, we found out in 2005, sold information of 160,000 people to an identity theft ring. In 2004, the same company was involved in a breach of data of over 128,000 citizens. What does Axiom do to protect personal data? I'm sure you have pretty strong firewalls. Have you had breaches? What happens in the case of these breaches?
We have a very strong commitment to security, not so much for our data business, but for our services business. We host and provide marketing services to a lot of regulated industries, such as financial services and healthcare. And as a result of that, those industries audit our security practices regularly. We have over 80 outside customer audits a year, and then, of course, we do our own audits. So we're always testing our security, always upgrading our security, because we take data breaches very seriously. I would say that we have the normal kind of situations that most companies do with lost laptops, but we have a very strong encryption policy where data is all laptops on this, or all data that is in a removable form is on an encrypted device. So we minimize the risk there when an employee has a device that's lost or stolen.
I'm looking at, again, with the data points, your catalog is pretty impressive in terms of what you can offer clients who are gathering information on all manner of ethnicity, gender, neighborhood. With the FTC, the rules may be different in Canada, but the ability to actually target by race and ethnicity, have you had any questions from the FTC about the appropriateness of that?
Well, there are certain industries that by law are barred from targeting by race or ethnicity. Financial services happens to be one of those. But other industries, particularly consumer product industries, some of which are actually developed, like cosmetics, which are developed specifically for some ethnicities, there's actually consumer benefit to target. So it does vary from industry to industry.
So your clients, I imagine people are wanting to sell products that make sense. They're going to want to know in certain markets who's there. Can individuals buy data?
No, we do not sell to individuals. We only sell to qualified businesses. We carefully screen all of our clients before we sell any products to them to make sure that they're a legitimate business and that they have a legitimate need for the data that they're specifically requesting.
Thank you.
Your time is up, Mr. Angus. Ms. Davidson has the floor for 7 minutes.
Thanks very much, Ms. Barrett-Glasgow, for joining us this afternoon. We certainly appreciate hearing from you. And I think that we're getting a different perspective on another part of this study that we're doing on social media. My question to you to start with is, you've said that you, excuse me, that you're a global agency, company, that you certainly follow the rules in all of the countries that you operate in, that you aren't in Canada physically, that you monitor the Canadian operation through Arkansas, and then you talked about your business in Canada using the phone listings and the 411 listings and so on. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Tell me, just describe to me a bit more what your business is in Canada, and how does that interact with social media? How does your company in business in Canada interact with social media?
The business in Canada is just a telephone directory service. As I said in my opening remarks, it includes listings, public listings, so anyone that's not listed or available through directory assistance would not be found in those directories, and consumers can choose to get out of them. Some, we find consumers, because we have this same directory service in the U.S., we find consumers that don't mind being in a printed telephone directory but are uncomfortable being in a internet directory. Many of the clients that we have are actual internet search engines, so that when you go to places like yellowpages.com and so on, you would potentially be searching on data that was provided or to those search engines by Axiom. And we keep that data updated and refreshed as the directories are updated and republished. The difference between the Canadian data and the U.S. data is quite substantial, as the previous member was just outlining some of the things that we do in the U.S. And we do some of those other activities in Europe and in Asia as well, maybe not quite to the extent that we do in the U.S., because that's where the company started. The interaction with social media for our Canadian business, there really isn't any, unless from a user standpoint, social media would like to take information they find in a social media account and cross-reference it against a published directory. We don't link data between social media and these directories.
And have you been following the study we're doing, or are you aware of the study that we're doing,
I'm only generally aware of it. I have not been following the details.
Okay. So I'm just trying to relate how your business relates to our study when we're looking at protection of privacy and social media and so on. I'm hearing from you that you don't have a connection with the social media.
I don't really think we do in Canada now, and that's, I think, because of the limited products that we offer in Canada. We do in the U.S. have products that identify heavy users of social media and what types of social media, such as Twitter or Facebook, an individual might use. But we do not offer those kinds of products in Canada.
Okay. You said in your opening remarks, you talked a bit about removing and opting out, or removing and correcting, I believe, if it was a commercial operation.
Yes.
Could you just elaborate a bit more on that?
Yes. Consumers that want to have their telephone directory listing removed may have it removed from the directories that we sell for the search engines, or they may have it removed for all of the directory products, things that are used for direct marketing purposes and not just directory search engines. And they can contact us to do that via our website. They can fill out the form online, and that opt-out is posted in the next update cycle of our database, which is monthly, and then redistributed to our clients. For the business side of the house, we offer essentially the same service, but because businesses really don't typically want to opt out, they usually contact us if they've moved or changed their telephone number or something. They're typically more interested in a correction because businesses want consumers to find them. So we will make that correction, and it will be published in the normal update cycle. But if they want us to do a special distribution of that new data, then we do ask a small fee for that.
And this is your Canadian business that you're referring to?
Yes, the Canadian directories, correct.
Right. I don't think I have any other questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Mr. Andrews, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Jennifer, for being here with us today. You said your Canada is limited to the directory and the census, but are there Canadians that are doing business in the United States through different companies or different loyalty programs or that kind of thing, where you might actually catch Canadians' data through a company or an organization that they're doing business with in the United States?
No, well, if some of our sources provided us data on Canadian citizens, and we would screen them out when the data came to us to put into our products. Each of our products in each country is built for that country so that we can be sure we're complying with the appropriate laws relative to that citizen's data.
So you'd screen out Canadian data?
Yeah, if we bought a list from someone that had both Canadian and U.S. data in it, we would exclude all the Canadian data when we built our U.S. product.
Okay. Could you just explain to us, we heard a lot of matching, of data matching and getting information from 5, 6, 7 different sources, and then data matching people based on partial information or bits and pieces. Could you explain to us a little bit exactly how that process works?
Yes, let me start with Canada because it's pretty simple, and then I'm happy to describe what we do in the U.S., which is far more complex. In Canada, we match on both name and address and telephone number because these are telephone directory listings, and we have a phone number for every record. And we append a census data to that based on geography. So we would take your census file, which is at a geographic level, and then we would append census characteristics to the individual record so that if someone was using it for direct marketing purposes or telemarketing purposes, they would have more information about the individual than just their name, address, and phone number. But that's a fairly simple process. In the U.S. and in other countries, we will match on names and addresses. We will match on telephone numbers when we have them. But when we're not, when we're not dealing with directories exclusively, we may have records that do not have a telephone number on them. So we would use the highest, most accurate information we have available in the record. Part of our matching algorithm, and I think it's part of something that any good data company that collects and assimilates data from multiple sources needs to do, is to have quality standards related to the data integration or data matching. We would, for instance, take an initial. My name might come in from one source as J. Glasgow, or it might come in as Jennifer Glasgow. If I lived in an apartment building, I might have the street address but be missing the apartment in one record. So we go through a data hygiene process to try and standardize and clean up, as to the degree we can, inconsistencies in the address, misspellings of maybe street names or other things like that. And then we would match records together to try and determine, do we have information about the same person or the same household from multiple sources that would be integrated together to build a composite of information. That's how we get, as the earlier member discussed, the up to 1,500 different data elements on one individual and household.
Thank you very much.
Sir Kemp,
Mr. Kemp, you had a question?
Dovetail privacy issue with the security issue. If I may, where does your hardware and software come from? Where does it originate? What's its proprietary nature? Is it U.S.? Is it Asian? Is it European?
It's primarily U.S. Our largest data centers are in the U.S., but we do have data centers in Canada. I'm sorry, not in Canada. In the U.K. That services our European operations, and we have data centers in Australia and China that service our Asian operations. But the data center for all the processing we do for Canada is based out of one of two locations in the U.S., either our Chicago data center or our Conway, Arkansas, which is just outside of Little Rock, our headquarters, where I reside, data center.
Okay, well, thank you.
And the software is commercially available software from IBM, from Oracle, from SAS, and other.
Okay, the reason I'm wondering, obviously, we've heard a lot of discussion, certainly in the U.S. Election just passed, but on a consistent basis, both political and business interests, certainly in the USA, have expressed concerns regarding security, particularly with regard to the interaction with the Asia-Pacific region. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, we certainly understand the concern, having a footprint in Asia.